She's 20 years younger than me, and she's pregnant. We need to get divorced. Suddenly, my husband brought his mistress home, and then he asked for a divorce. Honestly, our marriage had been falling apart for a long time. I no longer loved him, the man who never helped with the kids or housework and was always out having fun. Here's the divorce papers. I'm taking everyone except our eldest son. I handed the papers to my husband, but then he said something shocking. What? Take our eldest son too. I couldn't believe it. That's not possible because he is... When I confronted him with the truth, he was stunned and fell to his knees. My name is Riley, and I'm 51 years old. I'm a housewife. I married my husband Aiden 14 years ago. We were introduced by mutual friends. I used to work as a web designer and was always focused on my job. I hadn't dated in years. Those friends introduced me to Aiden out of concern. He was friendly and a great conversationalist. I hadn't dated much, but I enjoyed spending time with him and thought we could build a happy life together. But our journey to marriage wasn't easy. He was divorced and had a child. His ex-wife had left him and their child, and he said he was working while raising the child. When I discussed this with family and friends, they all said it would be a mistake. You'll struggle after you get married. That's what everyone says in unison. But to me, this challenge only made my love for him stronger. I felt I had to support him, a single father. I started seeing his son Matthew more often. Matthew, what do you want to do today? I don't want to play with you. Do you want to eat something? I can make anything you want. I don't want it. Matthew never warmed up to me. Was I not good enough because I had no experience with kids? Whenever I felt insecure, my husband comforted me. It's okay. Matthew will understand someday. Thank you for caring about him so much. His words made me happy, and I didn't mind being rejected by Matthew. I'll love him as if he's my own child when we get married. I'm glad I met someone like you who can love Matthew too. Looking back, I might have been too proud, thinking I was his emotional support. Then, 6 months into our relationship, I got pregnant and we got married. We had our daughter, Ella, and the next year our son Henry was born. I became a mother of 3. I was busy raising 2 kids back to back, but my husband never helped. Riley, Henry is crying. Can you comfort him? I'm busy right now. Me? No way. He wants his mom, right? Even when I was taking care of our daughter, he'd hand me our crying son and play on his phone. He always came home late, drunk. On his days off, he'd leave in the morning and come back in the evening. We barely had time to talk. I was always taking care of the kids, with no time to sleep. The stress kept piling up. Can you help a little? What? I'm tired from work. You're home all day. Taking care of kids is a woman's job. I couldn't believe it. I wouldn't have married him if I knew he was like this. I felt deceived. But, thinking of our newborn children, I couldn't easily ask for a divorce. Taking care of our restless second son and our daughter, who was going through her toddler tantrums, was really challenging. Still, I tried my best to be a good mother. My relationship with the eldest son, Matthew, remained distant. He hardly spoke to me. In the mornings, I'd wake him up for school and feed him, but we barely talked. I was so busy with the younger kids that I didn't have time to pay attention to Matthew. A few years later, as Matthew entered middle school, he became more rebellious. Matthew? Have you finished your homework, or are you just reading comics? Leave me alone. I'm just worried about you. That's what's annoying. Stop acting like a mom. Every time, he'd lash out and ignore me. I decided to talk to my husband about it. "Can you talk to Matthew? He's always playing, not studying, and he doesn't listen to me." "It's probably because of how you raised him. Maybe he doesn't listen because you've been too lenient?" "What? I don't want to hear that from someone who never helped and was always out." "You think I was just playing around?" My husband stood up angrily. "No, you were always out drinking. You never helped when I was busy." "I have work commitments. This is all part of my job. You live off my salary, so don't act so high and mighty." I couldn't respond. I had quit my job to take care of the kids, and we lived off the money my husband gave us. He only gave the bare minimum, so we were always just scraping by. I didn't have any money of my own. So when he brought up money, I felt powerless. But Matthew's behavior got worse. Some nights he wouldn't come home until very late. I feared he was getting into trouble. Despite my efforts to talk to both Matthew and my husband, neither listened. My husband and I started fighting every day, and then he began coming home less and less. This went on for years. I was over 50 and Matthew was in his last year of high school. I thought we'd understand each other once his rebellious phase was over, but that wasn't the case. He either ignored me or shouted at me. We couldn't have a proper conversation. My relationship with my husband was broken. Then, one day, he brought a young woman home. "Who is this?" "She's 20 years younger than me, and she's pregnant. We need to get divorced," my husband said, deeply apologetic. Honestly, I had suspected his affair for a long time, so I wasn't surprised. But I couldn't believe he'd bring her to our home, where our children lived. The woman smiled at me. "Hi there, I'm Chloe." I was amazed she could smile, knowing she was the other woman. She was 35, 20 years younger than my husband, dressed in revealing clothes and heavily made up. She looked so different from me, with my increasing wrinkles. "I honestly don't see you as a woman anymore. I want to take responsibility for Chloe's child, so I'm sorry, but we need to divorce." I had reached my breaking point with these two selfish individuals. I had endured for the sake of our children and our life together, but I no longer felt any love for my husband. He had been out having fun while I struggled all these years. I decided to make him realize the hardships I faced and plotted my revenge. Surprisingly, my husband was pleading, and I simply nodded in agreement. "All right." "What? You're okay with it?" He seemed shocked by my quick agreement. "Of course. Here's the divorce paper. I'm taking everyone except the eldest son." His face twisted in confusion. "What? Take the eldest son too?" I couldn't believe what he was saying. "That's not possible. He's your son from a previous marriage. We're not related by blood, and we don't get along." "So what? You said you'd love him like your own." "Yes, I did. I've always treated him like family. I never treated him differently from the younger kids and did my best to care for him." "Then take responsibility till the end." The mistress chimed in. "Yeah, right. I can't be a mother to a high schooler. Let the old lady take care of him." Matthew was probably hearing all of this. He had been distant and rebellious, but this was just too cruel. "He's the child you had with your ex-wife. Take responsibility for him." "Are you heartless?" "Who's the heartless one here? You never took care of him. If you won't, I won't divorce you." He scratched his head in annoyance and sighed deeply. "Fine, I'll take care of Matthew." "What? I can't be a mother to such an old kid." "Sorry, but it's just a few more years. Bear with it." "Fine, but buy me the new bag from my favorite brand." He smirked and said, All right. Seeing the two of them about to get cozy, I handed over the divorce papers. Can you sign this quickly? I'll take it tomorrow. Always in a rush, aren't you? He grumbled but signed. I took the signed papers and securely placed them in my bag. By the way, can you even live on your own after the divorce? You don't have a job or a place to stay. I feel sorry for the kids. He laughed smugly. He probably thinks I'm just a housewife with no savings. Thanks for your concern, but I have a job, so I'll be fine. What? You started working? It's probably just part-time, right? You can't live on that. It's not part-time. I went back to my web design job. I can work from home with just a computer. Last month, I earned over $100,000, so I think I'll manage. Really? My husband looked frustrated. A few years ago, I used my savings from when I worked to buy a computer. Then, I started working as a web designer from home. Having prior experience, I quickly found work and saved up, anticipating a future divorce. That's why I was ready with the divorce papers. I smirked at my husband, who thought he had the upper hand. By the way, are you two going to be okay? What do you mean? Child support. I'll need it for Ella and Henry until they're adults. He looked troubled. It's his responsibility to support his children. Just because we're divorcing doesn't mean he can abandon his duties. We'll discuss the amount through lawyers later. I'm thinking around $400 a month for both. $400 a month? That's too much. What are you talking about? They're in middle school now, and there are expenses for club activities and tutoring. Child support isn't just for food and utilities. It's actually a modest amount. Is it that much? He probably didn't know since he never got involved in our finances. Ella and Henry, who are in sports clubs, have expenses like shoes, uniforms, and practice gear. Plus, there are costs for away games. $200 per child per month might be a stretch for him. By the way, your girlfriend knows, right? Huh? I smiled at the mistress. Compensation for the affair? You've been having an affair for years, so I'll be seeking compensation. I'll consult with a lawyer, but it might be a hefty sum. Be prepared. What? I didn't know about that. It's not my fault. Do you think being over 30 and claiming ignorance will save you? By the way, I have all the evidence, so playing dumb won't help. I had hired a private investigator when my husband started staying out. I knew about the affair and had photos as proof. With all the evidence, there's no escaping. But the mistress, not wanting to admit the truth, cried out. To begin with, it's obvious that she's cheating on him when she's pregnant, so there's no way she can escape. However, as if she didn't want to admit that fact, her cheating partner yelled in panic. I don't have that kind of money. I don't even have savings, and I'm pregnant. That's not my problem. If you can't pay, ask the man next to you. She grabbed and shook my husband. You'll pay for me, right? I've got my hands full with child support. You pay the affair compensation. Why? You earn money. Pay it. I spent it all on gifts for you. Do you know how much I spent on you? What? I didn't know you were broke. The atmosphere between the two had turned sour. She was probably after his money. Otherwise, why would she date a man in his 50s? It was my husband's fault for having his hands on another woman while still married to me. My husband was at fault for cheating while married, but she was equally guilty for continuing the relationship. I wanted her to pay her dues. I thought you'd take care of me and buy me anything I wanted. That's why I considered marrying you. I didn't know about any affair compensation. I won't pay. You can refuse, but I'll consult my lawyer. See you in court? When I mentioned court, she panicked and stood up. I can't do this. I don't want to marry this old man and be in debt. especially not with a college-aged son. I'm leaving." "Wait, please." The mistress grabbed her bag and rushed out the door. My husband tried to stop her, but she pushed him away, causing him to fall on his rear. It was quite a comical sight. "Oh, she ran off on you." "It's all your fault. Look what you've done." He angrily got up. "Try anything and I'll call the police." This is all because you interfered in our marriage." I burst out laughing at his words. "Interfered? So, neglecting me and our family is just a natural consequence for you?" He fell silent, glaring at me, still not fully grasping the situation. I decided to drop another bombshell. "Just a reminder, Matthew's annual tuition is due this week." "What?" "I mean, he's starting college in the spring, right? You need to pay his annual tuition. You're taking care of Matthew, aren't you?" He looked puzzled. Having neglected our eldest son for years, he probably wasn't aware of his college plans or the costs. "How much is it?" "It's a private college, so around $40,000. $40,000? How am I supposed to afford that?" "Well, that's just for the first year. With tuition, facility fees, and other costs, it'll probably total around $1 million over the years." "Good luck." "You're kidding." I was surprised myself. I went to a public university and had no idea private colleges could be so expensive. He probably didn't expect this either. "Why did you let him apply to such an expensive school?" "It's not my fault. I told Matthew to study, but he didn't listen. And you never helped me when I asked for advice." "But you can't just enroll him in a college like that. I won't accept it." "Then talk to him. It was his decision to go there." He fell silent again. Having neglected his parenting duties for so long, he probably didn't know how to approach Matthew. I have no intention of worrying about those two. "We'll pack up our things and leave." As I stood up, he suddenly grabbed my arm. "Wait, let's try again." "What are you talking about?" "I've changed my mind. For the kids, we shouldn't divorce." He looked serious, but I knew it was all an excuse. "You just don't want to pay child support and compensation, right?" "No, wait, I can't be with you." "I promise I won't cheat again. Let's start over." "Absolutely not." I couldn't imagine living with someone who neglected his family, partied all the time, and got a woman 20 years younger pregnant. "You seem to misunderstand. I didn't agree to divorce just because you asked. I've wanted to for a long time. I just couldn't afford it. Now that I've saved up, it's perfect timing. Even if you hadn't asked, I would have." "Then why?" "I've always wanted to get a divorce, but I just couldn't get a divorce because I didn't have the money. I've been working hard and I'm saving money, so it was a good fit. Even if you didn't say you wanted a divorce, that's what I was going to say." "That's—" He was speechless. Did he really think I still loved him after everything? I'm not a saint enough to love my husband, who has done such terrible things to me. "But the kids need both parents. Divorce is bad for them." Just then, our eldest daughter and younger son stormed out of their rooms. "I don't want to live with a father like you." "Me neither." "Ella, Henry, how can you say that to your parent?" They stood by me, glaring at him. "You never did anything for us, and now you act like a father? Someone who cheats all the time is just disgusting. I'd rather live with Mom than with someone like you." "You guys." He seemed more shocked than angry, standing there with his mouth open. "You think just because they're kids they don't understand? They see everything and can judge right from wrong. Did you really think they'd still like you just because you're their father?" "I was wrong. Please, forgive me. I'll do anything. Buy you anything you want. take you anywhere. We don't want any of that. I don't even want to see your face." My children's words brought my husband to his knees. Did he really think he could still bribe middle schoolers with things? If so, he's seriously underestimating them. Ever since elementary school, they've seen the hardships I've faced and have been such caring kids. They wouldn't forgive him easily. We packed our things and left without saying a word to my husband, who was still on the floor. In the end, we divorced. Now he's probably struggling with alimony and child support payments. Apparently, his mistress gave birth, so he's also paying child support to her. Considering he'll be paying until the child is an adult, he'll likely be paying even after retirement. He got involved with a younger woman, and it's turned out to be a costly mistake. And since he never did any housework, I've heard his home is a mess. He can't even do laundry properly, wearing wrinkled shirts repeatedly, which has made him unpopular at work and in the neighborhood. With his mistress and children gone, and no money for leisure, he's become a shadow of his former self. But that's no longer my concern. And so we started our new life. "Ella, Henry, you'll be late for middle school." "Coming!" Both of them ran to the door with their bags. "Matthew, you need to leave soon too, or you'll be late." Yeah, so naggy." Matthew, now in a suit, headed to the door. The day we decided to divorce and leave, I found Matthew standing in the hallway. He'd been listening to our conversation. I couldn't leave him like that, so I approached him. "What do you want to do?" After some thought, he decided to come with me. Honestly, paying for Matthew's college would make our future finances tight, but he's a victim too. He's been neglected by his father, and with me busy with the younger kids, he's been alone during the times he needed us most. I couldn't abandon him. The father never comes home and just plays around. I couldn't take care of my younger child because my hands were full. My eldest son was always alone during the period when he needed to be pampered. I couldn't abandon my eldest son like that. When we moved to our new apartment, Matthew said he wanted to drop out of college. "I'll work and pay for everything." I appreciated his sentiment, but doubted he could find a good job with just a high school diploma. So I made a suggestion. "How about studying programming?" "Programming?" "Yes, in today's digital age, if you can program, you'll always have job opportunities. Study hard for a year and I'll cover all living expenses." Surprisingly, he agreed and studied diligently. In just 6 months, he was skilled enough to get freelance work, and this year he secured a full-time position. The kids, dressed in their school uniforms and suits, were making a ruckus at the door. "Watch your tone with Mom. Anyone who complains doesn't get a ride." "Liar, drive us." "Don't crash, bro." The younger kids, who once feared Matthew, are now close to him. As they finished putting on their shoes, all three turned to me. "We're off." Watching them leave, I never imagined we'd have days like this. It feels like Matthew is finally part of our family. I vowed to do everything for my children's happiness from now on.